When it comes to Vue JS, then components are definitely a thing you will run into. But even more important are properties and data for the first instance. To get to know what data and compute it is, this video is exactly what you're looking for. So what we see here is app.vue. And if you're coming from Vue.js 2, then you see there are two root elements. And for your information, this is just a root element if we have one element, so the div element in between our template tags. And in the example, there were two elements in the first level, so we have two root elements here. That wasn't a thing in Vue.js 2, well, it wasn't possible, but in Vue.js 3, it is possible since the beginning. And what will we have? We have here alt and src, so the source of the image and the alternative title. This is an HTML element. It's an image element, and this here is a component. You see the difference because this is here we have the camel casing, and we have here import from components, and we have this section here, so where the component is registered in our own component here. But MSG message is a property. So we see it here in components hello world that this here is a property and it is a string that should be handed over to our hello world component. And properties are the way to communicate with a component like this here. But we come to properties later in this course. But at first we see another thing which is called data, and therefore we just open our hello world component and erase here a lot of things. And then we see those two curly braces and message in between. And MSG in between says, please print here what is in between. So those two curly braces are telling Vue.js that here should be the place where a variable or a data or a property should be printed. And we see it. If we just head over to our browser, there it says, welcome to our Vue.js app. And this information comes from our app.vue, and we see here the property MSG. But what's the difference between a property and an attribute? If we have a native element like this here, we have attributes when it comes to alternative and this source here, for example. Properties are passed into our component here and can be defined here as props. And then they are dynamic. So when the value changes here, it also changes here on this place and where the value should be displayed. Properties are variables that comes from the outside of the component that can be saved for now. We also have data, and data is a function which returns an object. So we see data, name, and props as keys of this object here, and in JavaScript everything is an object. So we see here the field name, here we see the field data, and here we see the field props. And props here is just an object with a key value pairing. Here it's the variable name, and here it's the type of the property. And data is a little bit different. We have key value pairs as well. We have, for example, their first name, and then we have the value of it. So we have, for example, here Andreas. And this key value pairing is a little bit different from this one here, because here we just say the type of the variable here, and this is the real value. So if we want to print the value of first name here in our component, we just hit enter and two curly braces and then first name. So then you see when we head over to our Firefox browser, then you see here Andreas is printed on, and this is the way how string interpolation takes place in Vue.js. You can print every type of variable. Let's call them variables. You can print here first name, so the data variables. You also can print the properties like the same way. And we come to this later. You also can print computeds here. What you cannot do is things like giving alerts. this is just not possible. You see in your console that there is a pretty much error and warnings are going on. So we just erase that. You have here the possibility to just do JavaScript expressions, no procedural development, so no functions and everything else you may want to do. So just variables, and then there's no warning here in the console. So what's the difference again? We have properties. Properties are coming from the outside of our component. So here is outside the component because we are using it here. And inside the component is where the template tags are here in our single file component. Data is the place where we store data of the component. So here first name. And props is the place where we define what is coming from the outside. You also can do another variable like here, my last name. And you see this is my last name, and we also can print it out and here last name, and just head over to our browser and then you see those two variables. You also can combine those information like here first name and then using the plus notation and then do last name. Or if you're more familiar with this here, you can use those kind of single quotes and do first name and then you do last name. That's up to you, what is most familiar for you. And you see here Andreas, and a typo, first name. There we go. So now you see how to print the variables here on our component and in the front end. The next video will just be about computed properties, because this kind of notation can be do slightly different and more easy if it depends on two other variables in Vue.js. If you like the video, then just hit the subscribe button, leave a comment below the video, and we see us in the next video.